Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT, Oro Muscles, and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Oro Muscles revolutionizes rehabilitation with real-time actionable insights into muscle activity with live biofeedback and instant analysis, which has made a huge impact in my work with athletes. For more on Oro, be sure to check out oromuscles.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. Joining me today is Paige Drake. Paige and I are going to be diving into her journey as an athlete in track and field, including her early influences from her family, injuries she's faced along the way, where she's at now in her university studies and in her track and field career, what the future holds for her, and beyond. This is a great episode, and I always appreciate the opportunity to talk with athletes, hear about what they're doing, what they've been through, and where they're going. Enjoy. Paige, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with you today and shed some light on your athletic career, your rehab, your academics. I mean, you're just kind of like running it on all fronts, pun intended, because I think you do track and field. But for people who, maybe aren't as familiar with you as I am, would you mind filling in a little bit about who you are and the situation that you currently find yourself in?
Yeah, so my name's Paige. I am a junior nursing major and I go to St. Francis University and I'm a part of the track and field team. Um, St. Francis is obviously going through a little bit right now with the division change, but that's a whole other story. But I also suffered a back injury in my sophomore year of high school. So I have dealt with a lot of rehab, injections, PT. I've done it all with my back.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You've kind of been going through a little bit of a rough patch, and it sounds like that rough patch has actually been more like 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But hopefully we can change that and if nothing else, shed a little light about all the different things that you've been going through. I mean, first off, as you mentioned, you run track at St. Francis University right now. Where did the initial interest in track come from? What events do you do? How did we kind of end up getting to, currently D1 track and field, if you will?
Yeah, so track has been in my life since I was born. My dad was actually coaching when I was born. So I grew up at the track. I was like the little 2-year-old at practice, like running under the hurdles. It's just been in my life. So middle school came around, my brother was already in high school running track, and I was initially just kind of thrown into it. It wasn't like I was like forced to do it. It was just like that's what you do. Like it wasn't like my dad never made me. It was just like I knew I was running track. And then probably I would say my sophomore year of high school, I was like, okay, I do really like this sport. I see that like I'm adapting to it quicker than a lot of other people. And that's just kind of how it was my junior year. That's when I started looking at schools and I like took it really seriously at that point. But I kind of, um, growing up, I did like every event. I started out as a hurdler because my dad was coaching hurdles, did hurdles all the way till sophomore, junior year when I hurt my back. And then it took a toll on me. So I started sprinting, doing 100, 200, 4x1. And then my junior year of high school, I started long jump. Love that too. And then I came to college as a sprinter, sprinted my whole freshman year. Sophomore year, I started jumping. So I was doing sprinting and jumping. And then now, my junior year, I now do hurdles, sprints, and jumps.
So you just do all the things.
So now I do it all. I started doing a little bit, kind of incorporating, stopped doing most of them, and now I'm back to doing all of the events basically.
You
All
sound
basically the track events.
you sound very similar to me in that you're very indecisive and you're like, I can't decide which one or two I
Yeah.
want to do. So I'm just going to do all of the things, if you will.
Basically. Yeah, and I'm the type too, like if I know how to do it and it's gonna help our team, I'll do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you have like a favorite event that you've run into lately? I've never heard someone say that the 800 is their favorite, but maybe you're the first one. I don't
Uh-uh.
know.
No, I'm a short sprint girl for sure, but I think since high school, 4x1's been my favorite. I love like I mean track is a team sport, but really in the moment it's individual until the very end, like conference when the points all come together, that's a team. But I think 4x1, that's like finally like you are doing it for somebody else. Like you have to hold on to that baton and give it to another person. So I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Is that something that you've kind of found you're like really excelling at yourself or you're naturally good at? Or was that something that you kind of had to work more for? Was there anything within this track and field umbrella that just came naturally to you based on, what you told me about dad coaching and kind of family history that way? Or is there anything that was really a lot more of a struggle for you?
I would say in high school it did come naturally to me. I definitely middle school, high school, I kind of excelled. I kind of just had, I don't know if it was because it was in my family or I've just watched my brother do it so much that it was just like I watched my dad coach my brother, tell him the drills, give him critiques so that when I started running and doing hurdles and everything, like I just knew what to do because it was like almost like I was the one getting told what to do even though I wasn't. And then I think once I got to college, that's when it became a little difficult. I came from like not small town in Pittsburgh, but definitely not huge. We didn't have like crazy amount of people. So when I came to college and everyone was so good and everyone ran the same times you did or even better, it was like, oh, okay. Like it's starting, you almost had to like kind of relearn, and especially too, like I grew up with my dad as my coach. So I've only ever really had like one person critiquing me and telling me what to do. And then I go to college and I have a jumps coach, I have a sprints coach, I have a head coach, and they're telling me the same thing my dad is, but I've just always had my dad as the person like yelling at me and critiquing me. So I think that was also hard just to like adapt to that.
Did you like having your dad as a coach?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I won't always admit to him. Sometimes I'll have to pick on him and say everything, but I did really like my dad as a coach. Even if after a meet we had a long car ride home and I like dreaded those car rides because he just want to rest and he's talking about my last 20 meters of the race that I could have done this, and this, and I'm like, I really just need a nap, but
You're
at the
like,
end of the
bro, get me
day,
some ice cream
yeah,
and like we'll talk about this tomorrow.
exactly. And me and my dad are like the same person. We both have like the same attitude. So me and him, when it came to that, like butt heads like crazy. And then like 20 minutes later, we're like, okay, let's go watch football. But no,
It's
I
so
at the
funny.
end of the day, like I loved having my dad as a coach. And I don't think I realized until I came and had a different coach that I was like, wow, I can't really tell him this, 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 and this because like he's not my dad.
Right, right. I'm sure
Yeah.
he's gonna text me after we get done recording and be like, "Can you just clip that
Yeah.
part of the episode out and send that to
I,
me, like,
I
Christmas
never.
card, like whatever, like that clip. We need
Yeah.
that clip." Um,
Yes.
Now, you mentioned too, when you were in high school, you ended up injuring your lower back that way in relation to track and field, which is a little bit more unique. A lot of the track and field athletes I've worked with in the past tend to come to me with soft tissue stuff,
Mhm.
hamstrings, quads, whatever that way. I don't always see injuries in the lower back. Not saying it can't happen, obviously, but I've personally seen it less common than some of the
Yeah.
other things. So give me the rundown. What exactly did you do to your lower back? How did it happen? And what's kind of been the progression of
Mhm.
that from high school up until today?
Yeah, well, I actually grew up as a gymnast. So I did gymnastics and track. Yeah, I did gymnastics. I started when I was like 18 months. I was in my little mommy and me class, and then I started competing when I was 6. And then when I got to middle school, I did gymnastics and track at the same time, flip back and forth. And then my sophomore year, right before COVID hit, I started having really bad hip pain. And like gymnasts, I mean, I would break my fingers, I'd break my toes. They heal, you get over them. But I just kept having this really bad hip pain. And I got to the point that I was like, okay, like, I mean, gymnastics, you're at practice 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. I was like, I can't really practice the way I should be. So we went to the doctor and they told me I had bursitis in my hip and they gave me injections in my hip. And the next day I woke up with the worst pain in my lower back. Everything was just all in my lower back. I was having such bad pain. So we went back to the doctor and they told me I had a stress fracture in L5. So then that's kind of where it all kind of went wrong. I had to stop gymnastics. and I was in a turtle shell brace for like 16 weeks. So a
That's a
big,
long time.
yeah, it's supposed to be 6 weeks. Then it never got better. And then I swear the doctors kept pushing my appointment off. But I was in that turtle shell brace and I actually started probably around like 10 weeks. I started doing PT then. They let me do a lot of stuff. And I was going to a PT that was more focused on strength and conditioning and relearning how to lift again and squat and everything, especially because at this point it's my sophomore year. I'm kind of like preparing to go talk to like track coaches and participate and everything. So we were like trying to speed it up and I started doing stuff and I went to pick up a bar, like literally just squat down and pick up a bar and I stood up and I like could not move. My whole lower part was like in so much pain. Went to the hospital right away and they were just like you inflamed it. And I kept telling my mom, I'm like, "Mom, everyone's telling me nothing's wrong, but I know something's wrong. Like I can just tell." So we finally went to a neurosurgeon and I completely tore the disc behind the stress fracture. So I had to get injections and everything. And after that, I was fine. I was able to run. I finished my senior year of high school, did all of that, came to college. And then recently, I was just practicing like I normally do and started having really, really bad pain again. But it was never like the pain I had before. Like I could walk and everything. It was just if I moved a certain way, it just hurt so bad. So I went and got another MRI, and they basically told me that my disc has no fluid in it. So it's just like basically bone on bone rubbing. So I kind of, about 2 weeks ago, I just went and got more injections and everything. And I've, knock on wood, have been doing better. But I think once my career is done, we'll probably have to do surgery.
This is quite a journey for you, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's been a lot.
And there's a lot to unpack in relation to that. I mean,
Mhm.
first off, let's start with the fact that we had pain in our hip, and then the
Mhm.
next day, all of a sudden, the back started to bother us that way. It's so interesting, and I've seen this as the case in, different athletes that way,
Mhm.
where they come in with pain in one region, yet the real issue, if you will, is actually elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's so confusing and it's so easy to miss when that happens. Like,
Yeah.
I've probably missed stuff. I know, there's a lot of providers that have missed stuff like that. We see cases of it all the time. We actually did a podcast episode with an individual, a PT actually, and he was open enough to sharing a case where he actually misdiagnosed something and it went from stress fracture to full fracture really
Mhm.
quick. So it's one of those things that I think a lot of times for us as providers, it's so easy to look at it and be like,
Mhm.
well, it hurts there. It's probably that. And,
Yeah.
we carry on with our day. We're in and out in 2 minutes. But in reality, it's like maybe we should actually slow down, pump the brakes, have the
Yeah.
conversation, dig a little bit deeper into the past history on things, and, treat people as people a little bit more, especially in the sports world, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned gymnastics. Gymnastics is a sport of the extremes. I don't know how the heck you all do the stuff that you do. Like, I just tip my hat to you all that way because my body doesn't bend like that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't move like that.
Hey, mine doesn't
It's,
anymore. I tell my mom all the time, I was like, I'm gonna be 30 and he knew everything. It's a toll on the body for sure.
it definitely takes a toll on the body. You're right about that. And it's one of those things that I think the more we kind of fill in the gaps or put more
Hmm.
pieces into the puzzle, the more clearly we can see the entire picture that way.
Yeah.
So I certainly just advocate for providers out there spending a little bit more time with athletes in particular and just digging in a little deeper because you never know what you might uncover that way. And obviously, it's a very frustrating situation for you when you're
Yeah.
like, well, I got an answer. It's my hip. And then we do
Mhm.
injections, right? Probably some cortisone or something
Yeah.
like that because it's bursitis. And then the next day it's actually worse. It's like, I just wasted my time. I just wasted my money. Again, these things do happen, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that it was very frustrating for you.
Yeah.
And it also creates this situation now where you probably look back and wonder, like, what if we caught it right the first time? So we've always got that what if hanging over top of us. And then you mentioned stress fracture, you said delayed healing. You also mentioned 16 weeks, which is like 4 months in a brace. I'd imagine that was a very challenging time for you.
It
And I could be
was.
wrong about that,
Oh,
but
it
I
was.
haven't met a whole lot of high school, college age kids that enjoy being the one with the brace on.
No, I will say the only good part was COVID hit right, probably 2 weeks in while I had the brace.
Mm.
So I really didn't go out. That was like my big thing. Like I wore big sweatshirts. I was like covering that thing up. I wanted nobody to know. It was so uncomfortable. But at least I was home. And they told me a lot of the time, as long as I was like laying on my back, I didn't need to keep it on. So it was like, I guess that was like the good part that like I wasn't leaving the house in this big white brace.
No, for sure, for sure. There's always that silver lining that comes with that, which is nice
Mhm.
that you have that kind of perspective that way. And
Yeah.
obviously, you mentioning about the disc and different things that way. I guess I got to ask, was the entire time here, was everything just isolated in the back, or did you start to get stuff in the legs and that sort of thing too? Or what kind of things were you feeling during all of this?
So when I just recently had pain again, I was feeling it down my leg. It went almost to like the back of my knee. It went straight down. So it go from the middle of my back to like over to my left side and straight down the back of my leg. And
And
that's when I think they finally were like, "Oh yeah, we should get an MRI." And I was like, yeah, I think we should."
No, definitely, definitely a good thing to have that way,
Yeah.
and to get that additional look on it that way, if you will. And walk me through kind of your current understanding of just everything that's been going on with your back that way, because one of the things I've found that people often talk about is the body kind of gives us these little signs and signals sometimes that are almost like a little check engine light. It's
Mhm.
like saying like, hey, do more of this or don't do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time we have a hard time actually interpreting what those signs and signals are from the body that way. So I'm curious, what have been kind of like the latest like check engine light kind of signs, so to speak, from you?
I would definitely say my hips will get super tight. Randomly, I could wake up, or if I finish practice, my hips will get tight. So, but I definitely like when I stretch them, kind of goes away. Cold. The cold kills me. Those give me signs like crazy. I wake up, especially I live in cold Loretto, Pennsylvania, and it's so cold here, so that always gets me. But it's like it kind of depends on the day. So I'm like constantly staying on top of treatment and stretching and PT and everything just so I like don't get those random signs because they can kind of come in the middle of class sitting there for a while or if I'm going full out at a practice.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a never-ending grind for you that way. And you've mentioned you've had a lot of different experiences from a rehab standpoint. What's kind of been the highs and lows or the goods and bads that way? What do you feel like actually makes like a good rehab provider, if you will?
No, I definitely think somebody that kind of stays on top of it. I've been to kind of two different like PT rehab places and the one was kind of just a smaller place, but it was here's your exercises. Okay, you do it in this room. Or if you have to come out here, do it. And then I started going to one that was more, I think, focused on athletes and it was one on one. I just had one person when I walked in. We started talking about how I felt, how I did this, and like we kind of went straight into more like workouts than stretches. And it was a lot of ab workouts and like kind of stuff that I would do as an athlete because at this time that I started really going there, I was in high school and then I went back when I was a college athlete. So they were really doing stuff that I was gonna do, but like kind of tweaking it to make sure that like I'm not gonna hurt my back doing that or it's actually gonna benefit me more than hurt me. So definitely like somebody that's like kind of one on one, understands, but like also helps you with what you're going through in that moment.
Yeah, it sounds like you really value that individualized
Yeah,
approach to
yeah,
everything and having someone to not just kind of like, quote unquote, rehab you, if you will. It's not
yes.
just slapping exercises at
Hmm.
someone and stretching a bit. It's almost more like kind of forming like a relation like you would expect with like a coach almost,
Yeah,
kind of guide you along the journey, if you will. And it's interesting because that comes up a lot as I talk with athletes that they want experiences like that, yet for some reason they're difficult defined. So I think it's
Yeah.
one of those things that we as a profession need to push for more, but also I think the importance of other disciplines as well cannot be overlooked, right? Like
Mhm.
I would love it if every athlete that gets injured also has access to sports nutrition, sports psychology, all these different
Yeah.
things that way to kind of make it a little bit more interdisciplinary because, at least I've found for myself, I can't cover everything alone that way. I
Yeah.
kind of need someone else to help me out different times.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the back and you mentioned a little bit about kind of where we're at now. And, you mentioned you've had a few more injections done that way. Is this something that restricts you from doing everything you want from an athlete standpoint? Or are you like, you know what? I just got, I got to push through one more year or 2 more years. Like nothing is stopping me at this point.
Yeah. I'm more just push through
Push
it.
through it. I
I
love that.
am. I'm a sucker. I can't tell myself like to stop. I'm like, this is my sport. I'm in season now. You got to push through it. We just finished indoor season and I was starting to like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm really hurting. And then we got to our conference and I just bit the bullet, kept my mouth shut, did a lot of treatment before, stretched, put some icy hot, took some medicine, and was like, just go out and do it. You have one more meet. And that was probably definitely the hardest. I thought at that point, like, if these injections don't work, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish my outdoor season and then another indoor and outdoor. And then I got those injections and now I'm just got to get this season done with.
Do you feel like there's ever been any restrictions or barriers to you kind of telling people about what's going on with your back and how you feel and that sort of thing that way? Because I've certainly seen cases with athletes in the past where they feel scared or
Yeah.
something is like blocking them from speaking up about what they're feeling and what's going on that way. Have you ever felt anything like that or no?
Yeah, I kind of have. I almost feel like because my injury has lasted so long and this day it doesn't hurt, this day it does hurt. I've torn the disc, now I have this, I fractured this, and they're all different pains. So I feel like sometimes people don't either take it seriously or don't believe that it actually does hurt that way because if one day I might go in and be like, I'm just sore, and the other day I might just be like, it's going down my leg. Because it's kind of just, it's such a weird injury that like I feel so many different pains in so many different times that it's kind of like hard to express how I feel, and that almost like some people won't believe that like it is that serious or like it actually does hurt that way today.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they might not understand because they aren't in your shoes and feeling
Yeah.
what you're feeling, so to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's funny because I used to be like that with the lower back, and I used to kind of say, like, oh, well, it happens. Like, I wake up some days and my back's sore. I slept
Hmm.
funny and different things that way. And then I was really, really dumb and decided right before the 4th of July, actually, this was a couple of years ago, I decided that it'd be a great day to go for a deadlift PR. And I hadn't deadlifted in weeks, months, I should say. I don't know what crossed my mind at the time, but naturally it did not go well. The bar got about halfway up my shins, and then I actually like heard and felt things popping and snapping in my back. And I had
Hmm.
never felt anything quite like that before. And it was an immediate kind of like drop weight, sit down, figure out like what the heck just happened, like try not to
Yeah.
panic, put the weights away, attempt to walk out of the gym while still maintaining some level of like, like, I don't know, self-credibility or
Hmm.
integrity. Like ego just took a major hit. But I was down bad for like 6 weeks after that. And it was, I got back, but it was just a long, slow 6 weeks. And I realized
Yeah.
that's nothing compared to yours. But I also noticed, like, you mentioned about the legs that way. I actually couldn't lift my left foot as high
Mm.
as my right foot. I would go to lift my feet up, and the right one would shoot up, and the left one, like, I could barely get my
Yeah.
toes off the ground. And I'd feel like my foot was kind of like dragging or just like slapping the floor sometimes. And I'd never felt anything like that. And it's something that I don't wish people to go through by any means, but it did kind of open up my eyes a little bit more to this world of like, so this is what it's like
Yeah.
to have the back hurt.
Yeah.
And this is what it's like to constantly have icy hot put
Yeah.
on, like every single day. Like I was just
Uh,
living for that stuff. Like it's one of those things that once you go through it, it's like, oh my gosh.
yeah. You know that pain and like it will forever stick with you.
No, 100%, 100%. And it's one of those things that, again, we don't wish it on anyone, but I do think it's something that until you've experienced it, you might not fully appreciate it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that doesn't
Yeah.
make it any easier if you're the one who is dealing with it. And I think too, going back to your point on your rehab approach that way, I think that progressive approach is very helpful as well. I think a lot of times people are told, well, your back hurts, don't do this, don't do this. It becomes very restrictive. And
Yeah.
that just doesn't work for the athlete lifestyle, I don't think. I don't think you all can really be restricted in any regard. Like you're just gonna find a way to do things one way or
Yeah.
another. So I think the sooner we start kind of like a progressive loading strategy, the better it's gonna be for you
Yeah.
because you're gonna experience high force, you're gonna
Yeah.
experience crazy demands at some point. We might as well progress you up to it instead of just pulling back the rug and
Yeah.
letting you jump in fully. Now, you also mentioned that you're studying nursing at St. Francis University. I'm curious, has the back injury experience influenced your take on nursing at all, or how did we end up getting into nursing that way, and what's kind of kept us going there?
Yeah, I actually thought about going into PT because I was so involved with PT and everything. And then I was in the hospital for a little bit and I had like the most amazing nurse. He was so funny. He like made my whole experience amazing. And then I went to a different hospital. I went to Children's. And I had these nurses were just so incredible. They made me feel so safe. They like I never really thought about like what I was going through in the hospital. They just made it so fun. And then like right then and there, I was like, Mom, I think I want to be a nurse. And she's like, okay, like if that's what you want to do because it was out of the blue. And then it just like stuck with me. And then
And
I
here
kind of just fell in love with it.
and here we are now. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you kind of like that concept of like, med surge or, actually we talked yesterday a little bit. And you were telling me you kind of want to try everything. We want to
Yeah.
travel a little bit. We kind of want to dabble a little bit
Yeah.
everywhere and just see what all there is to offer in the space, if you will.
Yeah. I'm a very go-getter. Like I'm just like I'll just go with the flow. I'll see what I like. If I don't like it, I'll just move to the next thing.
You see, I like that attitude a lot, and I like to think that I'm a go with the flow person as well, but there's sometimes certain things in life happen or things get thrown at us that it's just like, you know what? I can no longer go with the flow, or I just got to put my
I
foot down
agree
a
with
little bit.
that.
So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about, from a recruiting standpoint for you. I'm assuming one of the big draws for track and field for you was you probably wanted to run Division I track and field. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it probably changes things for you when Division I is no longer being offered. I'm curious to hear kind of what your thoughts and what your plan is, kind of assuming that, hey, next year, at my current school, it's not going to be Division I anymore. Does that change anything for you? Does that matter? What are kind of your thoughts and what's your headspace like for that?
Well, I am lucky enough. They're gonna stay Division 1 for one more year.
Oh, perfect.
So they're 2026, 2027. They're gonna switch to D3. So I do have one more year when I'm here that they will be D3. But I've like talked to a lot of people because a lot of my friends are underclassmen and like they're kind of going through the situation. And our school is so big. A lot of athletes come here because it's such a small D1 school that they can do health sciences and Division 1 track because most places don't offer that. So a lot of my friends are kind of in that situation of like, well, I love track and I like there's such a good health science program and I can do both, but what do I do? But I am lucky enough that I get to stay D1 for my last year.
We love that. We love
Yeah.
that. So this is something that will not directly impact you per
Yeah.
se.
Yes.
If it did directly impact you, would that change anything hypothetically or not really?
I think it would change my mind a little bit. I think it would, just because like when I was talking to everybody else, this decision and everything isn't really what we signed up for. We came here for Division 1 track. And I was talking to my friends and everything, and I was like, if you have a passion for track, which not saying Division 3 track is not anything, it's they are very competitive and they're amazing. It's just we came here because it was Division 1. So I think I definitely would kind of be thinking about it. I know it's kind of heartbreaking for me now because a lot of my friends are leaving. I was just having a long conversation with my parents yesterday because I was like my last year here, like I'm gonna have my close friends, but like some of my teammates, some of my best friends, they're gone, and like it's so weird. But I definitely think that if it was like this year or like the season coming up that they changed, I think I would have a tough decision. I think I would really think about it.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things that I'm interested to kind of hear you expand on this a little bit. I talk with athletes all the time, and I have a tendency to kind of side with athletes on a lot of things. And
Mhm.
naturally, this is where I want to go with this. Is like, I feel the pain that you have, where it's like we're hit with something that we didn't see coming. There was no
Mhm.
warning. It changes everything for us overnight. Really, it's just snap of the fingers, and all of a sudden, like world pauses and everything changes. But at the same time, as much as I've been pro NIL and revenue sharing and all these amazing things to just help athletes, I'm
Mhm.
curious, do you ever feel like it goes too far, or do you feel like there's a point where it does go too far, or do you feel like there's no such thing in this space?
I think with some things it does go a little too far. I think some sports are favorited than others. I think football and basketball get a little favorited, but I also think it's kind of what's best for that athlete and that school. Because you're never going to see these big NIL deals or, some things like that with a school like this. But those bigger schools, like, in a way, as much as they probably say they don't like and everything, it does help their school too. So I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit of, it might be a little too much, but I think when you take a step back, you're like, okay, it's probably the best thing that they're going to do. And, like, it is going to help them at the end of the day. They definitely thought out the decision. Like, both the NIL deals and the athlete. Like everybody kind of thought it out. It wasn't just a jump to the moment.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's one of those things that I think, a lot of times people jump right to conclusions on this stuff.
Hmm.
And I've certainly have had a tendency to do that myself in the past that way. But as difficult as it is, sometimes it's like, okay, I do need to actually kind of pause and think
Hmm.
about this from multiple different sides, multiple
Yeah,
different parties, and all of the considerations that go in it. Because the one thing I've learned about this sports space, if you will, is it's very complex. And
yeah.
as much as we like to think it functions as just a sports thing, it also functions a bit like a business, if you
Yeah.
will. For better or for worse, that just seems to be the nature of the world that we're in that way. So,
Mhm.
you can, hate it all you want. I mean, there's certain aspects about the sports space I love. There's certain aspects I don't really love, but this is the reality of the world that we're living in. So it's like, the more aware I can be of all the different
Hmm.
factors that go into it, the better off we're all going to be, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Now, we've talked a little bit about kind of your past and track and field and how we've gotten to today. We've talked a little bit about the present, what we've currently been going on with the back, changes going on at SFU, and how that might be impacting you and your teammates and so on that way. I'm curious, what exactly does the future look like other than senior year next year and getting a phenomenal nursing job outside of school, Paige?
I truly think graduation and jump right into a job.
We're jumping right in.
Jumping right into a job. I want to just start working and travel the world and be a travel nurse.
Full send only. I
Yeah,
like that. I like that.
yeah,
Is that something that you feel is common nowadays to just jump right in full send? Or do you feel like, you know what, I see a lot of people taking like gap years and different
yeah.
things, but that's just not for me.
I think a lot of people are taking gap years, or people have the tendency like not finding the job, or like they have that mindset like this is the job I'm getting and this is what I want to do when I graduate, and it's sometimes it's so like unrealistic. Like I know you want to work this way or this way, but like coming out of college you might not get that. So I think people like have their mindset to one thing so they can't jump right into it.
For
But
sure.
I have the mindset that like as a nurse, you there's so many job opportunities. There's so many different things. Like why not just try them? If I don't like them, I don't like them. If I fall in love with them, then I stick with them.
And I feel like that makes you unique from a lot of different other individuals that I've talked
Mhm.
with and gotten to know that way. I'm curious, do you feel like there's anything else about you that really helps you like stand out and be a little bit different than, a lot of your peers that way, if you will?
I did grow up with two older siblings, a brother and a sister. So I always say I grew up with like an extra pair of parents. My sister's 8 years older than me, so like I was like I always had like a second mom. She was always yelling at me. So I feel like I grew up like very quickly because I followed in their shoes. So I
Y-
think I was just a very like I grew up not quick. Like I always say, had my childhood, it was amazing, but I grew up like just following their lead. So while I was 8, my sister was 16. Like I was in not even middle school when she was in college. So I just kind of like jumped ahead with everything, like following both of their leads.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Do you feel
Yeah.
like it's true that the youngest is the most spoiled?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, especially because I am such the baby of the family. Both of my siblings live far away now, so it's just me. So I definitely think I get a little spoiled. I do.
Nothing wrong with
But I
that.
won't admit it to my brother.
Of
I
course not.
still say he's the
Never.
favorite. He's the only boy. He's definitely the favorite. But definitely think my mom can spoil me, and I definitely can convince my dad.
That's hilarious. I like that. I like that a lot. And, obviously you've been highly successful on many fronts. Again, academic weapon, crushing it from a nursing standpoint. Like that's not an easy major by any means. Obviously, athletic weapon in the sense that you're literally a D1 track and field athlete doing more events than I can count at this point. What do you feel like outside of, the back injury, what do you feel like your success has cost you, or what kind of things have you had to give up in order to get to where you're at today, Paige?
Definitely feel like I gave up my like high school and college experience sometimes. I definitely was always, I mean, even now, I'm always traveling for track meets. In high school, I was constantly, me and my dad would travel on weekends by ourselves to go to meets. And all my friends were out and like just having fun, not doing anything dumb, but just all hanging out and having fun. And then I would come back to school and they were like, oh, yeah, this weekend we did this, this, and this. So I feel like in the aspect that I did have to give up a little bit of being with friends and making those memories. But I also tell myself if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am now and met the people I'm with now that we all experience it together. We're all traveling on weekends and we like make the memories out there together.
Yeah, no, it's so funny you say that because I hear stuff like that come up a lot, missing
Mhm.
proms and missing homecoming dances and all these different things to train or to compete. And it's one of
Yeah,
those things that I think once people hear it, they realize that the life of the athlete really is not for everyone. And
yeah,
if you want to do big, great things, you can do it. But, just realize that there's a cost to that success and that you have to give up some things along the way. Unfortunately, you can't have everything all the time. You eventually have to kind of give a little bit, if you will. And I think it's interesting too how it sounds like you've kind of always been traveling. I think that that likely probably influenced your interest in the travel nursing, if you will, because if you've been traveling for track and field all your life, really,
hmm
on gymnastics even before that, it's almost just second nature at this point.
yeah, yeah. I feel like even now, like we come here and I'm at school and we don't travel for the first half. I'm like, what am I supposed to do while I'm sitting here? Like I've used to never have weekends off. I was always somewhere on a flight or my dad was driving for 6 hours and I was sleeping in the back of the car.
Yeah,
So sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself because I'm like not used to it.
do you ever just casually like book a little weekend getaway, a little trip or something like that?
Well, my brother just moved to Florida. So
Well,
that's been my go-to of, hey, are you busy?
just casually
So
going to visit Florida real quick.
yeah, I've been down there probably more times than he really wants me to be. But
I see nothing wrong with this.
no, it's really amazing. He goes to work and I drop him off and I take his car while he's at work and I just explore Florida. It's so fun.
I'm sure he loves that.
Oh, 100%.
That's
Has to
amazing.
make like double dinner, everything. I'm the
It's
little sister, so I have to get spoiled while I'm down there.
exactly. So you get it.
Yeah.
I will say that is something I have been very much advocating for lately is to just have people go out there and travel and see the world a little bit because I feel
Yeah.
like the more you get out there, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to experience. And, they say nothing good ever comes from your comfort zone. I've certainly had some situations when I'm traveling where it's like, am I going to make it home from this? But let me tell you what, they make phenomenal stories later. So, to your point
Yes.
about full sending it, right into the workforce, I also think it's good to full send it from a travel standpoint as well.
Yeah.
Paige, I realize we could probably talk about things all day long because you're quite an interesting person that way. Is there anything we missed or anything that we were chatting about that you want to expand on or bring about a bit more?
Not that I can really think of. I think we brought up everything.
We love that. We love that.
Yeah.
Paige, for people who want to find out more about you online that way, where can they find you at in today's day and age?
Probably Instagram. Oh my gosh, I can't even think what my Instagram caption is.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's underscore Paige Drake underscore. I believe so.
That
My
sounds great.
TikTok, my TikTok also just went famous.
Oh, you're
So,
famous.
yeah, no, just one singular TikTok, and it was about St. Francis.
Okay. I was gonna say
After everything happened, me and my friends were all sad, and I was like, guys, let's make a TikTok.
it
And then
makes
like
everything
overnight,
better.
I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, like my TikTok was completely glitched. Couldn't go on it for like 2 days because
That's
I was just getting
insane.
like all these notifications. So maybe my TikTok one hit fame will stick up and I can stay TikTok famous.
Yes, influencer status. We need to
Yes,
pair
I
that
need
with the
that.
travel nursing. We need
Yeah.
this. This needs to
Yeah.
happen. That is what we're manifesting for the rest of 2025 into
Yeah.
2026 here.
Yes.
We love that. Well, we will link to Instagram and TikTok in the description
Okay.
below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there. If you're old like me, maybe there's a MySpace link that'll pop up too. But anyways, Paige, this was awesome. Great conversation. Really appreciate all that you're doing and looking forward to staying connected with you over the next several years.
Yes, of course.